Hello, everyone. If you are new here, I would like to tell you that we upload a new English learning video every day on our channel to help you improve your English faster. In today's episode, you will not only improve your English listening skills, but also your English speaking skills. In today's masterclass, we're diving into an essential topic that will help you become more fluent and sound more natural when you speak English. Phrasal verbs. We are going to explore the most important phrasal verbs you need to know for everyday conversations, and I'll show you exactly how to use them in real situations to make your English sound advanced and confident. Whether you're talking about your daily routine, making plans with friends, speaking at work, or even chatting casually, phrasal verbs are everywhere in English. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand how to use them correctly, and you'll get lots of practice examples and exercises with me so you can speak with confidence. Before we start the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and also press the bell icon if you want more helpful English learning episodes like this. So, grab a pen and paper. Let's get started. Let's begin with our journey into phrasal verbs. When we think about English in everyday life, we quickly notice that native speakers use small combinations of words that carry big meanings. These are phrasal verbs. They may look simple, but they often confuse learners because the meaning is not always clear from the words themselves. For example, when someone says pick up, they could mean to physically lift something from the ground, or they could mean to learn something quickly, or even to collect someone in a car. This flexibility is what makes phrasal verbs powerful, but also tricky. Imagine this. You are meeting a friend at a cafe, and you say, "I'll pick you up at 6. Here, pick up doesn't mean to lift your friend. It means to collect them with your car. Now think of another situation. You're listening to a song and later you say, "I picked up the lyrics really fast." Here, pick up means to learn. These differences only make sense when you hear phrasal verbs in real conversations and practice them with context. Let's practice together. Repeat after me slowly. I'll pick you up at the station. Again, a little faster. I'll pick you up at the station. Now try. I picked up Spanish during my trip to Mexico. One more time. I picked up Spanish during my trip to Mexico. Notice how the same phrasal verb shifts its meaning depending on the situation. Another very common phrasal verb is turn on. Think about your daily routine. You wake up in the morning and you say, "I turn on the light." Later, before watching TV, you say, "Can you turn on the television?" But turn on can also mean to excite or activate someone emotionally. For example, that speech really turned on the crowd. Context helps you understand which meaning is correct. Let's practice together again. Say this with me. Turn on the light, please. Repeat it slowly. Now again. Turn on the TV, please. And finally, her energy turned on the whole team. Feel the rhythm of the phrase. Let it become part of your natural speech. Now let's look at get along. This phrasal verb is about relationships. If you say, "I get along with my coworkers," it means you have a good relationship with them. If you say, "My neighbors and I don't get along," it means your relationship is not good. This phrasal verb is essential when talking about friendships, family, or colleagues. Practice with me. Slowly. I get along with my brother. Again, more naturally. I get along with my brother. Now try. Do you get along with your classmates? Once again, do you get along with your classmates? These small sentences prepare your mouth and your mind to use phrasal verbs fluently when you speak in real life. Let's move to another very useful one. Look after. This means to take care of someone or something. For example, I look after my younger sister when my parents are busy. Or, can you look after my dog while I'm away? It's a soft, caring phrasal verb that appears often in daily conversation. Now, let's practice together. Slowly. I look after my little sister. Repeat with me. I look after my little sister. Now try. She looks after the children every afternoon. Again. She looks after the children every afternoon. Notice how we are not just memorizing meanings, but also training the rhythm and flow. Fluency grows when your tongue and mind move together in these short, natural chunks of language. Now think about give up. This phrasal verb means to stop trying, to quit. You might hear someone say, I gave up smoking last year, or don't give up on your dreams. This phrase carries emotion and motivation because it often appears when we talk about challenges in life. Practice this with me. Say, I gave up fast food. Repeat slowly. I gave up fast food. Now, don't give up on learning English. Once more, don't give up on learning English. Feel how powerful it is when you say it out loud. Another one that comes up daily is run out of. Imagine you want to make tea and you realize there is no sugar. You say, we ran out of sugar. Or you are driving and the car stops because we ran out of gas. This phrasal verb is essential for everyday situations when something is finished. Now let's practice together. Slowly. We ran out of sugar. Again, we ran out of sugar. Try this one. I ran out of time. Once more. I ran out of time. These sentences are short but very common, and the more you practice them, the faster you'll be able to use them naturally. Phrasal verbs also show up when we talk about responsibilities or work. Take carry on. It means to continue. For example, even though it was raining, we carried on with the picnic. Or, please carry on with your work. It's polite, formal enough for work, but also friendly enough for casual talk. Now repeat with me. Carry on with your practice. Again. Carry on with your practice. And another. She carried on talking even after the bell rang. Once more. She carried on talking even after the bell rang. Each of these phrasal verbs builds your vocabulary and makes your English sound more advanced. But the real secret is practice, not just learning the meaning, but repeating, speaking, and using them until they flow naturally. Another important phrasal verb you'll hear all the time is look forward to. This one is especially useful because it adds positivity and politeness to your English. For example, you might write in an email, I look forward to hearing from you. Or, in daily conversation, I'm looking forward to the weekend. This phrasal verb always brings a sense of excitement or anticipation. Let's practice together. Slowly. I look forward to seeing you. Again, with more natural speed. I look forward to seeing you. Now try. She's looking forward to her holiday. One more time. She's looking forward to her holiday. Notice how it connects people in a warm, polite way. Now let's take come across. This one means to find something by chance, not because you were looking for it. For example, I came across an old photo in my drawer. Or, I came across an interesting article online. It's a natural way to talk about discoveries in everyday life. Practice with me. Slowly. I came across a good book. Again. I came across a good book. Now try. She came across her childhood toy in the attic. Once more. She came across her childhood toy in the attic. Phrasal verbs like this make your English storytelling sound richer and more natural. Another common one is work out. It has a few meanings. It can mean to exercise. I work out at the gym 3 times a week. It can mean to find a solution. We need to work out this problem. Or it can mean to happen successfully. Everything worked out fine in the end. Let's practice. Slowly. I work out every morning. Again. I work out every morning. Now, we worked out the solution together. Once more. We worked out the solution together. Finally. Things will work out eventually. Repeat it. Things will work out eventually. Let's talk about setup. This is a very useful phrasal verb for work, business, and daily activities. It means to arrange, to prepare, or to organize something. For example, we set up the meeting for Monday, or she set up her own business last year. Even, can you set up the table for dinner? Now, repeat after me. I set up a new email account. Again. I set up a new email account. Try. They set up the chairs for the event. Once more. They set up the chairs for the event. This phrasal verb is so common that you'll hear it everywhere. Another one that's powerful for daily conversations is take off. Think about when a plane leaves the ground. You say, the plane took off on time. But it can also mean something becomes successful. Like, her career really took off after the new project. Or even to remove clothing. Please take off your shoes. Let's practice together. Slowly. The plane took off late. Again. The plane took off late. Now. Take off your jacket, it's warm inside. Repeat. Take off your jacket, it's warm inside. And, his business took off quickly. Again. His business took off quickly. Let's explore bring up. This one means to mention or start talking about a subject. For example, she brought up an interesting question in class. Or, don't bring up politics at dinner. It's used very often when we want to talk about conversations or topics. Practice with me. Slowly. He brought up a new idea. Again. He brought up a new idea. Now. She brought up the problem during the meeting. Once more. She brought up the problem during the meeting. Using this phrasal verb shows that you can describe conversations more naturally. Now let's look at hang out. This is casual and friendly, perfect for informal English. It means to spend time with someone socially. For example, we hang out at the park on weekends. Or, do you want to hang out after school? Repeat after me. Slowly. I like to hang out with my friends. Again. I like to hang out with my friends. Now try. They're hanging out at the cafe. Once more. They're hanging out at the cafe. This phrase will make your casual conversations sound natural and easygoing. Another useful one is call off. It means to cancel. For example, they called off the meeting because of the weather, or the game was called off due to rain. It's short, clear, and commonly used. Practice. Slowly. They called off the party. Again. They called off the party. Now. The trip was called off at the last minute. Once more. The trip was called off at the last minute. Now, think about catch up. This one is especially useful for friendly conversations. It can mean to talk with someone after a long time. Let's catch up soon. Or it can mean to reach the same level as others. I need to catch up on my homework. Let's practice together. Slowly. Let's catch up next week. Again. Let's catch up next week. Now. She needs to catch up on sleep. Once more. She needs to catch up on sleep. Let's keep going with more phrasal verbs, practicing them in natural, everyday situations so you can feel how they fit into real conversations. Think about give in. This one means to finally agree to something after resisting or saying no for a while. For example, the children kept asking for ice cream until their father gave in. Or, she didn't want to go to the party, but she gave in eventually. It's a phrase that shows a change of decision, often after pressure. Practice with me. Slowly. He gave in to the pressure. Again. He gave in to the pressure. Now. She gave in after arguing for hours. Repeat it once more. She gave in after arguing for hours. Now let's talk about put off. This phrasal verb means to delay or postpone something. For example, we had to put off our meeting until next week. Or, don't put off doing your homework. Sometimes it can also mean to discourage someone. The noise put me off studying. Practice together, slowly. They put off the wedding until June. Again. They put off the wedding until June. Now. He puts off everything until the last minute. Repeat once more. He puts off everything until the last minute. Another very common one is come up with. This phrasal verb means to create or suggest an idea, a plan, or a solution. For example, she came up with a great idea for the project. Or, can you come up with an excuse? It's a phrase that shows creativity or problem solving. Let's practice. Slowly. He came up with a solution. Again. He came up with a solution. Now try. She came up with a new recipe. Once more. She came up with a new recipe. Now let's explore take care of. This one is friendly, polite, and very common. It means to look after someone or something. For example, I'll take care of the bills, or she takes care of her grandmother. It's a phrasal verb that shows responsibility and kindness. Repeat after me, slowly. I'll take care of it. Again, I'll take care of it. Now, he takes care of the garden every weekend. Once more, he takes care of the garden every weekend. Another one that learners love is break down. It usually means to stop working, like a machine or a car. For example, my car broke down on the way to work. But it can also mean to collapse emotionally. She broke down in tears after hearing the news. Practice with me. Slowly. The car broke down yesterday. Again. The car broke down yesterday. Now. He broke down during the speech. Repeat once more. He broke down during the speech. Let's continue with fill out. This one is useful in formal situations. It means to complete a form by writing in the required information. For example, please fill out this application form. Or, I filled out the survey online. Practice. Slowly. Fill out the form, please. Again. Fill out the form, please. Now. She filled out the registration paper. Once more. She filled out the registration paper. Another important phrasal verb is cut down on. This one is about reducing something. For example, I'm trying to cut down on sugar. Or, he needs to cut down on spending. It's practical for health, money, and habits. Repeat after me. Slowly. I cut down on coffee. Again. I cut down on coffee. Now try. They cut down on expenses this year. Once more. They cut down on expenses this year. Now think about look up. It can mean to search for information, like I looked up the word in the dictionary. Or, in casual talk, it can mean things are improving. Don't worry, things are looking up. Let's practice. Slowly. I looked up the address online. Again. I looked up the address online. Now. Things are looking up for her career. Once more. Things are looking up for her career. And now, let's practice bring back. It means to return something or to remind someone of the past. For example, can you bring back my book tomorrow? Or, this song brings back memories. Practice together. Slowly. She brought back the umbrella. Again. She brought back the umbrella. Now. The smell of cookies brings back my childhood. Repeat once more. The smell of cookies brings back my childhood. Let's continue adding more phrasal verbs and practicing them in natural sentences so you can feel their rhythm and use them fluently in real conversations. Think about show up. This phrasal verb means to arrive, usually where people expect you. For example, he didn't show up for the meeting. Or, she always shows up late to class. It's very common in both casual and professional English. Practice with me. Slowly. He showed up on time. Again. He showed up on time. Now try. They didn't show up yesterday. Once more. They didn't show up yesterday. Now let's use check out. It has a few meanings. At a hotel, it means to leave and pay. We checked out at noon. It can also mean to examine or look at something. Check out this new book. Or even to admire someone. He was checking her out. Practice together. Slowly. I checked out of the hotel. Again. I checked out of the hotel. Now. Check out this website. Repeat once more. Check out this website. Another essential one is turn down. This means to refuse or reject something or to reduce volume. For example, she turned down the job offer. Or, turn down the music, please. Repeat with me, slowly. He turned down the invitation. Again. He turned down the invitation. Now, turn down the radio. Once more, turn down the radio. Let's move on to go over. This means to review or examine something carefully. For example, let's go over the report together, or she went over her notes before the exam. Practice. Slowly. Go over your answers. Again. Go over your answers. Now. We went over the plan in detail. Repeat once more. We went over the plan in detail. Another useful phrasal verb is look into. This means to investigate or research. For example, the company will look into the complaint, or I need to look into this matter further. Say it with me, slowly. I'll look into the problem. Again, I'll look into the problem. Now, they looked into the issue carefully. Once more. They looked into the issue carefully. Now let's practice get back. It often means to return. For example, I'll get back home at 7. It can also mean to reply, I'll get back to you soon. Practice together. Slowly. I got back late last night. Again. I got back late last night. Now. She'll get back to you tomorrow. Once more. She'll get back to you tomorrow. Let's talk about put up with. This means to tolerate something unpleasant. For example, I can't put up with the noise anymore. Or, she puts up with a lot of stress at work. Practice. Slowly. I can't put up with it. Again. I can't put up with it. Now. He puts up with traffic every day. Once more. He puts up with traffic every day. Another one is find out. This means to discover information. For example, I found out the truth. Or, she found out about the surprise party. Repeat after me, slowly. I found out the answer. Again, I found out the answer. Now, we'll find out tomorrow. Once more, we'll find out tomorrow. Let's also explore go through. It can mean to experience something difficult. She went through a tough time, or to examine something. We need to go through the details. Practice with me. Slowly. He went through a lot last year. Again. He went through a lot last year. Now. Let's go through the notes together. Repeat. Let's go through the notes together. Now take over. This means to assume control of something. For example, she took over the project. Or, the company was taken over by a larger firm. Practice. Slowly. He took over the class. Again. He took over the class. Now. She took over as manager. Once more. She took over as manager. Finally, for this section, let's practice drop by. This means to visit casually, without a big plan. For example, I'll drop by your office tomorrow. Or, they dropped by for a quick chat. Repeat with me. Slowly. She dropped by my house. Again. She dropped by my house. Now. I'll drop by later. Once more. I'll drop by later. Let's continue deepening your practice with even more phrasal verbs that appear naturally in daily conversations. Think about wake up. It's one of the first things you do every day. For example, I wake up at 7 a.m. on weekdays. Or, she woke up late this morning. It's simple, but one of the most used phrasal verbs in English, and it can also be used figuratively, like wake up to reality. Practice with me. Slowly. I wake up early. Again. I wake up early. Now. He woke up late for school. Once more. He woke up late for school. Now let's use get up. It follows naturally after wake up. For example, I wake up at 7, but I get up at 7:30. Or, she got up quickly when the alarm rang. This shows the difference between opening your eyes and actually leaving the bed. Practice together, slowly. I get up at 8. Again. I get up at 8. Now. She got up right away. Once more. She got up right away. Another very useful one is sit down. It simply means to take a seat. For example, please sit down and relax. Or, the teacher asked the students to sit down. It's polite and very common in formal or casual English. Repeat after me, slowly. Please sit down. Again. Please sit down. Now. He sat down next to me. Once more. He sat down next to me. Now let's explore stand up. The opposite of sit down. For example, she stood up to give her speech. Or, stand up straight. It can also mean to defend yourself. He stood up for his friend. Practice. Slowly. Stand up, please. Again. Stand up, please. Now. He stood up quickly. Once more. He stood up quickly. And she stood up for her beliefs. Repeat. She stood up for her beliefs. Let's practice get on. This phrasal verb is especially useful for transport. For example, we got on the bus at 8, or she got on the train. It can also mean to have a good relationship. They get on really well. Say it with me. Slowly. Get on the bus. Again. Get on the bus. Now. They got on the train together. Repeat. They got on the train together. And I get on with my colleagues. Again. I get on with my colleagues. Now let's practice get off. The opposite of get on. For example, we got off the bus at the station. Or, she got off work at 6. It's one of the easiest, but most important phrasal verbs for daily life. Practice together, slowly. Get off the bus. Again. Get off the bus. Now. He got off the train at the last stop. Once more. He got off the train at the last stop. And I get off work at 5. Repeat. I get off work at 5. Now think about come back. This means to return to a place. For example, she came back from her trip yesterday. Or, I'll come back later. Repeat after me, slowly. Come back soon. Again. Come back soon. Now. He came back late. Once more. He came back late. Another useful one is go out. This means to leave the house, usually for social reasons. For example, we went out for dinner, or do you want to go out tonight? It can also mean something stops shining, like the lights went out. Practice. Slowly. Let's go out. Again. Let's go out. Now. They went out for lunch. Once more. They went out for lunch. And the lights went out suddenly. Repeat. The lights went out suddenly. Now let's talk about come in. It means to enter a place. For example, come in and have a seat. Or, she came in quietly. It can also be used for joining in, like, the new rule comes in next month. Say it with me, slowly. Come in, please. Again. Come in, please. Now. He came in late. Once more. He came in late. Finally, for this section, let's practice go back. It means to return to a place where you were before. For example, I want to go back to Italy one day. Or, she went back to her old school. Practice together, slowly. I'll go back soon. Again. I'll go back soon. Now. They went back home. Once more. They went back home. Let's continue practicing more phrasal verbs together, because the more examples you see and repeat, the more natural they will sound when you speak in real life. Think about carry out. This means to perform or complete a task or action. For example, the scientists carried out an experiment, or she carried out the teacher's instructions carefully. It's often used in professional or formal situations, but also in daily tasks. Practice with me. Slowly. They carried out the plan. Again. They carried out the plan. Now. He carried out repairs on the house. Once more. He carried out repairs on the house. Now, let's explore break into. This means to enter a place by force, usually illegally. For example, thieves broke into the house last night. But it can also mean to suddenly start doing something, like she broke into laughter or he broke into song. Say it with me, slowly. Someone broke into the car. Again. Someone broke into the car. Now. She broke into tears. Once more. She broke into tears. Another very common one is call back. This means to return a phone call. For example, I called her, but she didn't call back. Or, please call me back later. Practice. Slowly. I'll call you back. Again. I'll call you back. Now. He never called me back. Once more. He never called me back. Now let's use cut off. This means to stop something suddenly. For example, the electricity was cut off. Or, she cut me off while I was speaking. It can also mean to isolate. He was cut off from the rest of the group. Repeat after me, slowly. The phone line was cut off. Again, the phone line was cut off. Now, she cut me off mid-sentence. Once more, she cut me off mid-sentence. Let's practice hold on. It means to wait or pause. For example, hold on a minute, please. It can also mean to grip something tightly. Hold on to the railing. Say it with me. Slowly. Hold on, I'm coming. Again. Hold on, I'm coming. Now. Hold on to your bag. Once more. Hold on to your bag. Another useful one is let down. This means to disappoint someone. For example, I felt let down when he forgot my birthday. Or, don't let your team down. Practice. Slowly. He let me down. Again. He let me down. Now. Don't let your parents down. Repeat once more. Don't let your parents down. Now let's take point out. It means to show or mention something. For example, she pointed out the mistake in the report. Or, he pointed out the restaurant to me. Practice together. Slowly. She pointed out my error. Again. She pointed out my error. Now. He pointed out the moose. Once more. He pointed out the museum. Think about set off. This means to begin a journey. For example, we set off early in the morning. It can also mean to cause something, like, the smoke set off the fire alarm. Say it with me. Slowly. We set off at dawn. Again. We set off at dawn. Now. The bell set off the dogs barking. Once more. The bell set off the dogs barking. Now, let's try look out. It means to be careful or pay attention. For example, look out, there's a car coming. Or, look out for pickpockets. Repeat after me. Slowly. Look out, it's dangerous. Again. Look out, it's dangerous. Now. Look out for mistakes in your writing. Once more. Look out for mistakes in your writing. Finally, for this section, let's practice bring out. This means to make something noticeable or to release a product. For example, the company brought out a new phone, or that dress really brings out your eyes. Practice with me. Slowly. They brought out a new book. Again. They brought out a new book. Now. The colors bring out her smile. Once more. The colors bring out her smile. Let's continue exploring more phrasal verbs and using them in real-life examples. Because the more situations we practice, the more flexible and fluent your English will become. Think about turn up. This can mean to appear or arrive, often unexpectedly. For example, he turned up late to the party, or she always turns up when I least expect her. It can also mean to increase the volume. Turn up the radio. Practice with me. Slowly. He turned up at my house. Again. He turned up at my house. Now. Turn up the music, please. Repeat once more. Turn up the music, please. Now let's look at run into. This means to meet someone unexpectedly. For example, I ran into my old teacher at the supermarket. Or, she ran into her friend downtown. Say it with me. Slowly. I ran into an old friend. Again. I ran into an old friend. Now. He ran into his cousin yesterday. Once more. He ran into his cousin yesterday. Another very common one is sort out. This means to organize or solve a problem. For example, we need to sort out our schedule. Or, she sorted out the mess in her room. Practice together. Slowly. I'll sort out the problem. Again. I'll sort out the problem. Now. She sorted out the files. Once more. She sorted out the files. Now let's practice hand in. This is useful in schools and workplaces. It means to submit something, usually work or documents. For example, please hand in your homework by Friday. Or, he handed in his resignation. Repeat after me. Slowly. Hand in the assignment. Again. Hand in the assignment. Now. She handed in the report. Once more. She handed in the report. Another important one is put on. This means to dress in clothing or to stage a performance. For example, she put on her jacket. Or, they put on a play at school. It can also mean to pretend. He put on a smile. Practice. Slowly. Put on your shoes. Again. Put on your shoes. Now. She put on some makeup. Once more. She put on some makeup. Now, let's try take care. You often hear this as a friendly goodbye. Take care, see you soon. It can also mean to be cautious. Take care crossing the street. Say it with me, slowly. Take care of yourself. Again. Take care of yourself. Now. Take care, my friend. Once more. Take care, my friend. Think about move on. This can mean to continue to the next thing. For example, let's move on to the next question. Or it can mean to emotionally recover. She moved on after the breakup. Practice with me, slowly. Let's move on. Again. Let's move on. Now. He moved on with his life. Once more. He moved on with his life. Now let's practice look after yourself. It's similar to take care of, but it's more personal. For example, you need to look after yourself when you're sick. Or, she looks after her own health carefully. Repeat after me, slowly. Look after yourself. Again. Look after yourself. Now. He looks after himself well. Once more. He looks after himself well. Another phrasal verb you'll hear often is check in. At a hotel or airport, it means to register or confirm. For example, we checked in at the hotel. Or, she checked in for her flight. Practice together. Slowly. I'll check in at the desk. Again. I'll check in at the desk. Now. They checked in for their flight. Once more. They checked in for their flight. Finally, for this section, let's try check out of. It's the opposite of check in. For example, we checked out of the hotel at noon. Or, she checked out of the hospital. Say it with me. Slowly. We checked out early. Again. We checked out early. Now. He checked out of the clinic. Once more. He checked out of the clinic. Let's keep building more phrasal verbs with natural practice, so you can feel confident using them in everyday English conversations. Think about give back. This means to return something to the person who owns it. For example, I need to give back the book I borrowed. Or, She gave back the money. It's simple, polite, and important in daily interactions. Practice with me. Slowly. Give back the pen. Again. Give back the pen. Now. He gave back the jacket. Once more. He gave back the jacket. Now let's try cut out. This can mean to remove something completely. For example, I cut out sugar from my diet. Or, cut out the picture from the magazine. It's also used when machines suddenly stop. The engine cut out. Say it with me. Slowly. Cut out junk food. Again. Cut out junk food. Now, she cut out the article. Once more, she cut out the article. Another very useful one is go ahead. This means to proceed or continue. For example, go ahead, tell me the story. Or, you can go ahead without me. It's polite and encouraging in conversations. Practice. Slowly. Go ahead and start. Again. Go ahead and start. Now. She went ahead with her plan. Once more. She went ahead with her plan. Let's use hold back. This means to stop yourself or someone else from doing something. For example, he held back his anger. Or, the police held back the crowd. Repeat after me. Slowly. She held back her tears. Again. She held back her tears. Now. They held back the players. Once more. They held back the players. Now let's practice bring up to date. This means to give the latest information. For example, let me bring you up to date on the project. Or, the teacher brought the class up to date with the news. Say it with me. Slowly. Bring me up to date. Again. Bring me up to date. Now. He brought us up to date with his story. Once more. He brought us up to date with his story. Another common one is carry on with. We touched on this before, but let's expand. For example, carry on with your homework. Or, she carried on talking, even when the bell rang. It's a phrase for continuing, without stopping. Practice. Slowly. Carry on with your work. Again. Carry on with your work. Now. He carried on despite the noise. Once more. He carried on despite the noise. Let's use fall apart. This means to break into pieces, either physically or emotionally. For example, the chair fell apart when I sat on it. Or, she fell apart after the breakup. Repeat after me. Slowly. The toy fell apart. Again. The toy fell apart. Now. He fell apart under pressure. Once more. He fell apart under pressure. Now let's try take back. This means to retract something you said or to return an item. For example, I take back what I said. Or, she took back the dress to the store. Practice with me. Slowly. I take back my words. Again. I take back my words. Now. He took back the shoes. Once more. He took back the shoes. Think about break off. This means to end suddenly. For example, they broke off their engagement. Or, he broke off the conversation. Say it with me. Slowly. They broke off the meeting. Again, they broke off the meeting. Now, she broke off her friendship. Once more, she broke off her friendship. Finally, for this section, let's practice check over. This means to examine carefully. For example, check over your essay before you submit it. Or, the mechanic checked over the car. Practice slowly. Check over your answers. Again, check over your answers. Now, she checked over the details. Once more, she checked over the details. Let's continue practicing more phrasal verbs step by step, with natural examples that make them easy to remember and use in your own conversations. Think about bring along. This means to take someone or something with you when you go somewhere. For example, I brought along my friend to the party. Or, don't forget to bring along your passport. Practice with me. Slowly. Bring along your notes. Again, bring along your notes. Now, she brought along her cousin. Once more, she brought along her cousin. Now, let's use run over. It can mean to hit something with a vehicle. The car ran over a ball. But it can also mean to quickly review something. Let's run over the main points. Say it with me. Slowly, he ran over the schedule. Again, he ran over the schedule. Now, she nearly ran over the cat. Once more, she nearly ran over the cat. Another common one is look back. This means to remember or reflect on the past. For example, when I look back on my childhood, I feel happy. Or, she looked back at her mistakes. Practice. Phrasal, owly. I look back with joy. Again, I look back with joy. Now, he looked back at his school days. Once more, he looked back at his school days. Let's try go out with. This means to date someone or to accompany someone socially. For example, she's going out with her boyfriend tonight. Or, he went out with his classmates. Repeat after me. Slowly. She went out with her friends. Again, she went out with her friends. Now, he's going out with a girl from work. Once more, he's going out with a girl from work. Now think about look forward to. We practiced this earlier, but it's so useful that more practice will make it stronger. For example, I'm looking forward to meeting you. Or, she looked forward to the holidays. Practice together. Slowly. I look forward to dinner. Again. I look forward to dinner. Now. They look forward to the trip. Once more. They look forward to the trip. Let's use go on. This means to continue or to happen. For example, the meeting went on for hours. Or, please go on with your story. It's simple but extremely common. Say it with me. Slowly. Go on, I'm listening. Again. Go on, I'm listening. Now. The show went on until midnight. Once more. The show went on until midnight. Another useful one is get over. This means to recover from something, often illness or difficulty. For example, she got over her cold. Or, he never got over losing his job. Practice. Slowly. I got over the flu. Again. I got over the flu. Now. He got over the disappointment. Once more. He got over the disappointment. Now let's practice. Look out for. This means to be careful or pay attention. For example, look out for cars when crossing the road. Or, she always looks out for her friends. Repeat after me. Slowly. Look out for danger. Again. Look out for danger. Now. He looked out for his younger brother. Once more. He looked out for his younger brother. Let's try call on. This can mean to visit or to ask someone to speak. For example, I'll call on you tomorrow, or the teacher called on me to answer. Say it with me. Slowly. She called on her aunt. Again. She called on her aunt. Now. The professor called on the student. Once more. The professor called on the student. Finally, for this section, let's practice come down with. This means to become sick with something. For example, she came down with the flu, or he came down with a cold last week. Practice together. Slowly. I came down with a fever. Again. I came down with a fever. Now. They came down with food poisoning. Once more. They came down with food poisoning. Let's continue our practice with even more phrasal verbs, because each new one you add makes your English sound richer, more natural, and closer to how native speakers communicate every day. Think about drop off. This means to deliver someone or something to a place. For example, I'll drop off the package at the post office, or she dropped off her kids at school. It can also mean to fall asleep. He dropped off during the movie. Practice with me. Slowly. I'll drop off the letter. Again. I'll drop off the letter. Now. She dropped off the children. Once more. She dropped off the children. Now let's explore pick out. This means to choose or select something. For example, she picked out a nice dress. Or, he picked out a good book for me. Say it with me. Slowly. Pick out a song. Again. Pick out a song. Now. She picked out a blue shirt. Once more. She picked out a blue shirt. Another very common one is turn off. This means to deactivate or stop something from working. For example, turn off the lights, or please turn off your phone. It can also mean to cause dislike. His attitude really turned me off. Practice. Slowly. Turn off the computer. Again. Turn off the computer. Now. She turned off the radio. Once more. She turned off the radio. Now let's try put away. This means to return something to its proper place. For example, please put away your clothes. Or, he put away the groceries. Repeat after me. Slowly. Put away the dishes. Again. Put away the dishes. Now. She put away her toys. Once more. She put away her toys. Think about bring in. This means to introduce or include. For example, the company brought in a new manager, or the teacher brought in a new activity. Say it with me, slowly. They brought in new rules. Again. They brought in new rules. Now. She brought in some fresh flowers. Once more. She brought in some fresh flowers. Now let's use get together. This means to meet socially. For example, let's get together this weekend. Or, they got together for a barbecue. Practice. Slowly. We got together last night. Again. We got together last night. Now. Let's get together tomorrow. Once more. Let's get together tomorrow. Another useful one is grow up. This means to become an adult. For example, I grew up in a small town. Or, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor. Repeat after me, slowly. I grew up here. Again. I grew up here. Now. She grew up in London. Once more. She grew up in London. Let's practice give away. This means to donate or hand out something, often for free. For example, she gave away her old clothes, or the store is giving away free samples. Say it with me, slowly. He gave away his books. Again. He gave away his books. Now. They gave away free tickets. Once more. They gave away free tickets. Now, let's try work on. This means to spend time improving something. For example, I'm working on my English skills. Or, she worked on the project all night. Practice together. Slowly. Work on your pronunciation. Again. Work on your pronunciation. Now. He's working on a new design. Once more. He's working on a new design. Finally, for this section, let's explore set out. This means to begin a journey or to start a task with purpose. For example, they set out early in the morning. Or, she set out to learn French. Repeat after me. Slowly. We set out at sunrise. Again. We set out at sunrise. Now. He set out to write a book. Once more. He set out to write a book. Let's continue building more phrasal verbs into your practice with plenty of real-life examples so you can feel how they naturally fit into everyday English. Think about bring up. We touched on it before, but let's reinforce it because it's such a useful phrase. It means to mention or raise a topic. For example, she brought up an interesting idea during the meeting. Or, don't bring up old arguments. Practice with me, slowly. He brought up a question. Again. He brought up a question. Now. She brought up the subject politely. Once more. She brought up the subject politely. Now let's practice break out. This means something starts suddenly. For example, a fire broke out in the building, or war broke out between the two countries. It can also mean to escape. The prisoners broke out of jail. Say it with me, slowly. A fight broke out. Again. A fight broke out. Now. She broke out of prison. Once more. She broke out of prison. Another common one is run out. We used it earlier, but it's so important that it's worth practicing again. For example, we ran out of milk, or she ran out of time during the exam. Practice. Slowly. We ran out of paper. Again. We ran out of paper. Now. He ran out of patience. Once more. He ran out of patience. Now let's try put up. This has several uses. It can mean to build or place something. They put up a tent in the garden. It can mean to allow someone to stay. She put me up for the night. And it can mean to tolerate. I can't put up with his behavior. Repeat after me, slowly. They put up the poster. Again, they put up the poster. Now, she put me up in her house. Once more, she put me up in her house. Think about break into. This can mean entering forcefully, but also to suddenly start something. For example, she broke into laughter, or he broke into a run. Practice. Slowly. He broke into a song. Again. He broke into a song. Now. She broke into tears. Once more. She broke into tears. Now let's use check out. Another very common phrasal verb we've touched on before. For example, check out the new restaurant. Or, he checked out of the hotel early. Say it with me. Slowly. Check out this photo. Again. Check out this photo. Now. They checked out yesterday. Once more. They checked out yesterday. Another one you'll hear often is look over. This means to review something quickly. For example, can you look over my essay? Or, she looked over the document. Practice. Slowly. Look over these notes. Again. Look over these notes. Now. He looked over the application. Once more. He looked over the application. Let's practice go off. This can mean something explodes or makes a loud noise. The alarm went off at 6 a.m. It can also mean to spoil. The milk went off, and sometimes it means to leave. She went off without saying goodbye. Repeat after me, slowly. The alarm went off. Again. The alarm went off. Now the food went off. Once more, the food went off. Now let's try come up. This means something arises or happens. For example, something came up and I couldn't attend the meeting. Or, the topic came up during lunch. Say it with me. Slowly. Something came up. Again, something came up. Now. The issue came up in conversation. Once more. The issue came up in conversation. Finally, for this section, let's practice hold up. This means to delay. For example, sorry I was late, I was held up in traffic. It can also mean to support something physically. The pillars hold up the roof. Practice. Slowly. I was held up. Again. I was held up. Now. Traffic held me up. Once more. Traffic held me up. Let's continue adding more phrasal verbs with real-life examples and practice, so you can feel confident using them in your own daily conversations. Think about look up to. This means to admire or respect someone. For example, I look up to my parents. Or, many students look up to their teachers. It's a positive phrase that shows respect. Practice with me. Slowly. I look up to my father. Again. I look up to my father. Now. She looks up to her mentor. Once more. She looks up to her mentor. Now, let's use get away. This means to escape or to go on a short trip. For example, the thief got away from the police. Or, we got away for the weekend. Say it with me. Slowly. He got away quickly. Again. He got away quickly. Now. We got away for a holiday. Once more. We got away for a holiday. Another useful one is look down on. This means to think you are better than someone else, in a negative way. For example, he looks down on people who earn less money, or we should never look down on others. Practice. Slowly. Don't look down on anyone. Again, don't look down on anyone. Now. She looks down on her classmates. Once more. She looks down on her classmates. Now let's practice make up. This can mean to invent a story. He made up an excuse. It can mean to reconcile. They made up after the fight. Or it can mean to compensate. I'll make up for being late. Repeat after me. Slowly. She made up a story. Again. She made up a story. Now. They made up quickly. Once more. They made up quickly. Think about put out. This means to extinguish something like fire. They put out the fire. It can also mean to publish. The company put out a statement. Say it with me. Slowly. Put out the candle. Again. Put out the candle. Now. They put out a report. Once more. They put out a report. Now let's use bring about. This means to cause something to happen. For example, the new law brought about change, or her ideas brought about improvement. Practice. Slowly. The policy brought about results. Again. The policy brought about results. Now. He brought about positive change. Once more. He brought about positive change. Another common one is catch on. This means to become popular or to understand. For example, the trend quickly caught on, or it took me a while to catch on to the joke. Repeat, slowly. The idea caught on fast. Again, the idea caught on fast. Now, she caught on quickly. Once more, she caught on quickly. Now let's practice fall behind. This means to not keep up with others. For example, he fell behind in his studies. Or, don't fall behind on your payments. Say it with me. Slowly. I fell behind in class. Again, I fell behind in class. Now, she fell behind on her work. Once more, she fell behind on her work. Let's use back up. This means to support someone or to save data. For example, I'll back you up in the meeting. Or, don't forget to back up your files. Practice. Slowly. She backed me up. Finally, for this section, let's practice end up. This means to reach a final situation, often unexpectedly. For example, we ended up at a small cafe. Or, he ended up becoming a teacher. Repeat after me, slowly. We ended up late. Again. We ended up late. Now. She ended up winning the prize. Once more. She ended up winning the prize. Let's finish strong with more phrasal verbs and plenty of natural practice so you can feel completely confident using them in conversations every day. Think about check up on. This means to make sure someone is okay or that something is being done. For example, the teacher checked up on the students, or she called to check up on her friend. Practice with me. Slowly. I checked up on him. Again. I checked up on him. Now. She checked up on her parents. Once more. She checked up on her parents. Now, let's use do without. This means to manage without something. For example, we'll have to do without sugar. Or, she had to do without her phone for a week. Say it with me. Slowly. I can do without coffee. Again. I can do without coffee. Now. He did without help. Once more. He did without help. Another useful one is hold out. This means to continue or survive in a difficult situation. For example, the food will hold out until Friday, or they held out against the storm. Practice. Slowly. We can hold out longer. Again. We can hold out longer. Now. He held out for a better offer. Once more. He held out for a better offer. Now, let's try keep on. This means to continue doing something. For example, she kept on talking, or keep on practicing your English. Repeat after me, slowly. Keep on learning. Again, keep on learning. Now. He kept on working all night. Once more. He kept on working all night. Think about make out. This means to understand so, me thing with difficulty, or to kiss passionately in informal use. For example, I can't make out what he's saying, or they made out in the movie. Say it with me. Slowly. I can't make out the words. Again. I can't make out the words. Now. She made out the handwriting. Once more. She made out the handwriting. Another one is pass out. This means to faint or lose consciousness. For example, he passed out from the heat, or it can also mean to distribute. They passed out flyers. Practice. Slowly. He passed out on the floor. Again. He passed out on the floor. Now. She passed out the papers. Once more. She passed out the papers. Let's practice pull through. This means to survive or recover from something difficult. For example, he pulled through after the surgery. Or, the team pulled through in the final moments. Repeat. Slowly. She pulled through the illness. Again. She pulled through the illness. Now. They pulled through together. Once more. They pulled through together. Now, let's try turn out. This means to result in a certain way. For example, the party turned out great, or it turned out he was right. Say it with me, slowly. It turned out well. Again, it turned out well. Now, the event turned out better than expected. Once more, the event turned out better than expected. Finally, let's finish with wind up. This means to end something or to find yourself in a situation. For example, let's wind up the meeting, or he wound up in trouble. Practice with me. Slowly. Let's wind up now. Again. Let's wind up now. Now. She wound up happy. Once more. She wound up happy. And as we come to the end of this long masterclass, remember that phrasal verbs are not just about memorizing. They are about feeling the rhythm of real English, practicing them in context, and using them until they become natural. You've practiced dozens of them today, and every one you master brings you closer to fluency. Keep repeating, keep listening, keep shadowing the phrases, and you will notice your English becoming smoother and more confident, day by day. Thank you for spending this time learning and practicing with me. If you enjoyed this lesson, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and press the bell icon so you don't miss more helpful English practice in the future. Take care, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next session.